The smoke reached Yannick Calloway before he saw the flames, thick black tendrils curling through the forest canopy like grasping fingers. He urged his horse forward along the narrow trail, heart hammering against his ribs as the acrid smell grew stronger. When he crested the final hill, his breath caught in his throat. The old waystation stood engulfed in fire, orange flames licking hungrily at the wooden structure, consuming beams and boards with terrifying speed. The building had been abandoned for years, a relic from when this stretch of road saw more travelers, but now it served as a blazing beacon against the darkening evening sky. Yannick should have ridden on. Any sensible man would have. The building was clearly lost, and the wilderness stretched for miles in every direction with no help to summon. But something made him pause, some instinct honed from 6 years fighting on the southern borders. He listened past the roar and crackle of flames, and there, barely audible, came a sound that turned his blood to ice. A voice. Someone calling for help from inside that inferno. He dismounted before conscious thought caught up with action, his boots hitting the packed earth as he tied his horse to a tree well away from the blaze. The heat hit him in waves as he approached, forcing him to raise an arm to shield his face. The front entrance had already collapsed inward, a jumble of burning timber blocking any entry. Yannick circled the building, searching desperately for another way in. The side wall showed a gap where boards had rotted and fallen away over the years, widened now by the hungry flames. It was barely large enough for a man to squeeze through, and the edges glowed red with heat. The voice called out again, words he could not quite make out but laden with terror and pain. Yannick pulled his coat over his head, took 3 deep breaths of the cleanest air he could find, and plunged through the gap. The world became fire and smoke. His eyes watered immediately, rendering everything a blur of orange and black. The heat seared his exposed skin, and he felt his coat beginning to smoke. He dropped low where the air was marginally clearer and pushed forward, guided by memory of the waystation's layout from a time he had sheltered here years ago. The main room had been a traveler's refuge once, with rough benches and a stone hearth. Now it was hell itself. Burning debris rained from above as the roof began to fail. Yannick stumbled over something and nearly fell, catching himself against a still-standing beam that scorched his palm through his glove. He bit back a curse and kept moving, eyes scanning desperately through the smoke. Then he saw her. She was chained to the far wall, heavy iron manacles securing her wrists above her head to a rusted ring set deep in the stone. But what stopped Yannick's breath was not the chains but what they held. An orc. A female orc, young, with skin the color of spring leaves and dark hair matted with blood and ash. She had clearly been beaten before the fire started. One eye was swollen nearly shut, her lips split, and purple bruises darkened her arms and shoulders. Her clothing hung in tatters, a simple shift that might once have been beige but was now streaked with soot and blood. Their eyes met across the burning room, and Yannick saw raw terror transform into desperate hope. "Please," she gasped, her voice hoarse from smoke. "Please help me." A beam crashed down between them, sending up a shower of sparks. Yannick threw his arm up reflexively, then pushed forward. He had no tools, no way to break iron chains or pick locks, but he had been a soldier, and soldiers learned to improvise. He grabbed the chain where it connected to the wall ring and threw his full weight backward. Nothing. The ring held firm, set by builders who had made this waystation to last. "The key," the orc girl cried out. "He had a key, over there on the hook by the door." Yannick followed her desperate gesture to where a doorway stood still intact, though flames crawled up its frame. A single iron hook protruded from the wall beside it, and hanging from that hook, was a loop of cord with something small and metallic dangling from it. The ceiling groaned ominously above them. Yannick ran. The heat was overwhelming now, stealing the air from his lungs. He reached the doorway just as part of the upper floor collapsed behind him with a thunderous crash. His fingers closed around the cord and he yanked it free, then turned and sprinted back to the chained orc. His vision swam from smoke inhalation, and his lungs burned, but he forced his shaking hands steady as he fitted the key into the first manacle. It stuck. Rust and age had seized the mechanism. "Come on," he growled, twisting harder. The key turned with a shriek of protesting metal and the manacle fell away. The orc girl sagged, her full weight now on one wrist. Yannick steadied her with one hand while working the second lock with the other. This one opened more easily, and suddenly she was falling forward. He caught her, shocked by how solid she was, all muscle and weight despite looking so young. "Can you walk?" he shouted over the roar of flames. She nodded, though her legs shook badly. They had no time for gentle assistance. Yannick pulled her arm over his shoulders and half dragged, half carried her toward the gap he had entered through. The smoke was so thick now he could barely see 3 feet ahead. He navigated by feel and fading memory, stumbling over debris, avoiding the worst of the flames by inches. The gap appeared suddenly before them, a rectangle of blessed twilight. Yannick shoved the orc girl through first, not gently but with desperate haste, then threw himself after her. They tumbled out onto the ground as a massive section of roof collapsed behind them with a sound like thunder. Sparks and ash rained down around them. Yannick crawled forward, putting distance between them and the collapsing building, then collapsed onto his back, gasping for air. His throat felt like sandpaper and every breath hurt, but he was breathing. That was what mattered. Beside him, the orc girl lay curled on her side, coughing violently, her whole body shaking. For several long minutes they simply lay there, recovering. Yannick's vision slowly cleared and his breathing gradually eased, though the pain in his lungs remained. Finally, he forced himself to sit up and look around. The waystation was gone, reduced to a skeleton of burning timbers that would soon be nothing but ash and memory. His horse whinnied nervously from where he had tied it, but appeared unharmed. The orc girl pushed herself up to sitting more slowly, wincing with every movement. In the firelight, Yannick could see her injuries more clearly now. The beating she had taken had been severe and methodical. Someone had hurt her deliberately, taking their time. Rage kindled in his chest, hot and sudden. "Who did this to you?" he asked, his voice rough from smoke. She flinched at his words, and he saw her draw into herself, arms wrapping protectively around her torso. Her one good eye fixed on him with wariness that cut through even the terror of their near-death experience. Right. Of course she was afraid. He was human and she was an orc, and that meant everything in this world that had taught both their peoples to fear and hate each other. Yannick took a slow breath and deliberately moved back a few feet, giving her space. "I am not going to hurt you," he said more gently, "but you need help. Those injuries need tending." "Why did you save me?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper, thick with suspicion and confusion. "I am orc." "You are human. You were chained in a burning building. What else would I do?" She stared at him as though he had spoken in a foreign tongue. Her tusks, small and delicate, caught the firelight as her mouth worked around words she could not quite form. Finally, she just shook her head. Yannick got slowly to his feet, his legs unsteady. "Can you ride?" "I do not know." She tried to stand and made it halfway up before her legs buckled. Yannick caught her automatically and felt her entire body go rigid with fear at his touch. He released her immediately and stepped back again. "I have a homestead about 2 miles west of here," he said. "I can tend your injuries there, give you food and shelter for the night. tomorrow, when you are stronger, you can go wherever you wish." "Why?" That single word again, laden with disbelief. "Because leaving you here would mean death." Yannick met her gaze steadily. "And I have seen enough death." Something flickered across her face at those words, some recognition or understanding. She studied him for a long moment, her one unbattered eye searching his features as though trying to read his soul. Whatever she saw there must have been enough, because she gave a tiny, tentative nod. Getting her onto the horse proved challenging. She was weak from injury and smoke inhalation, and clearly terrified of falling. Yannick ended up mounting first, then reaching down to pull her up behind him. She settled gingerly against his back, her grip on his coat uncertain. "Hold on," he said. "The trail is rough." Her arms tightened fractionally around his waist. Yannick could feel her trembling, whether from cold, shock, or fear he could not tell. Probably all three. He urged his horse forward, keeping to a careful walk despite his desire for speed. The animal seemed to understand the fragility of their situation and picked its way along the trail with unusual care. The ride felt endless. Night had fallen fully now, and only the moon provided light to navigate by. Behind them, the waystation fire had diminished to a dull glow. Yannick kept checking over his shoulder to make sure the orc girl had not fallen off. Each time he found her still clinging to him, though her grip grew weaker. When his homestead finally came into view, a single-room cabin with a small barn nestled in a clearing he had carved from the wilderness, relief flooded through him. He had built this place with his own hands over the past year, seeking solitude after the war. It was not much, but it was sturdy and warm and safe. He dismounted first, then helped the orc girl down. She swayed dangerously the moment her feet touched ground. Yannick caught her elbow to steady her. "Just a bit further," he said. "Can you make it to the cabin?" She nodded, though the movement seemed to cost her. They made their way slowly to the door, Yannick supporting most of her weight. Once inside, he guided her to his bed, the only real furniture in the small space besides a rough table and 2 chairs. She sank onto it with a small sound of pain. Yannick lit the oil lamp hanging from a ceiling beam, then turned to assess his unexpected guest properly. The lamplight revealed the full extent of her injuries, and he had to suppress a curse. Whoever had done this deserved worse than a burning building as punishment. "I need to see how bad the damage is," he said carefully. "May I?" She looked at him with that same wary confusion, as though basic courtesy was a concept foreign to her experience. After a moment, she nodded. Yannick knelt beside the bed and began with her head, gently probing the swelling around her eye and the cut on her lip. She bore his examination in tense silence, flinching occasionally but never pulling away. The head wounds looked worse than they were, he decided. Painful and ugly but not dangerous. Her arms told a different story. Dark bruises circled both wrists where the manacles had bitten deep, and more bruises mottled her shoulders and upper arms in the distinctive pattern of cruel fingers. Her ribs showed bruising too, visible through the tears in her shift. When he pressed gently against them, checking for breaks, she gasped and jerked away. "Sorry," he murmured. "I think you have some cracked ribs. They will heal, but you need to rest and let them." "I cannot stay here," she said quickly, panic edging into her voice. "You saved me and I am grateful, but I cannot stay. If I am found here with you, they will kill us both." "Who will kill us both?" She looked away, her jaw tight. "It does not matter, I just cannot stay." Yannick sat back on his heels, considering. "At least stay tonight." "You can barely walk, let alone travel. Morning is soon enough to decide what comes next." She clearly wanted to argue, but exhaustion and pain were winning the battle. Finally, she gave a small nod of concession. "What is your name?" Yannick asked gently. She hesitated so long he thought she might not answer. "Vara," she said at last. "My name is Vara. I am Yannick Calloway." He pushed himself to his feet. "Let me get water and something for those injuries." He had a well just outside and kept a bucket by the door. The night air felt blessedly cool after the heat of the fire, and he took a moment to simply breathe, letting his racing thoughts settle. An orc girl. He had brought an orc into his home. If anyone discovered this, the consequences would be severe. The nearest settlement, a small farming community called Millbrook, lay 5 miles to the north. The people there were decent enough folk, but they were also frontier people, hardened by years of border conflicts with orc clans. They would not understand this act of mercy. They would call it treason or worse. But what else could he have done? Left her to burn, left her to die of her injuries in the wilderness. Yannick had spent 6 years as a soldier doing things that still haunted his dreams. He had killed orcs in battle, followed orders he now questioned, seen friends die in skirmishes over land and pride. When the war finally ground to an uneasy truce, he had taken his mustering-out pay and fled to this remote corner of the frontier specifically to escape all that blood and hatred. He was not going to start adding to his nightmares by abandoning wounded girls to death, regardless of what color their skin happened to be. Yannick drew a bucket of fresh water from the well and returned inside. Vara had not moved from where he left her, though her eyes tracked him warily as he entered. He found clean cloth for bandages and the small tin of salve he kept for cuts and burns. His movements were methodical and calm as he wetted a cloth and approached the bed. "This might sting," he warned, then began gently cleaning the cut on her lip. She held perfectly still, barely seeming to breathe. Her eye, the one not swollen shut, watched his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. He worked in silence, washing away blood and ash, applying salve to the worst of the cuts and abrasions. Her skin was warm beneath his fingers, and he tried not to think about how strange it felt to be this close to someone he had been taught to see as an enemy. When he reached for her wrists to tend the manacle wounds, she pulled back reflexively. "I know it hurts," he said quietly, "but these need cleaning or they will fester." "You are very gentle," she said, and there was such bewilderment in her voice that it made his chest ache. "No one has ever been gentle with me." Yannick met her gaze and saw layers of pain there that had nothing to do with tonight's beating. "Then people have been cruel," he said simply. "May I?" She extended her wrist slowly, like an animal offering a limb to a suspected trap. He cleaned the raw, torn skin as carefully as he could, then wrapped both wrists in clean bandages. The salve would help with healing and prevent infection. "I cannot do much for the ribs except bind them," he said. "But that means I would need to wrap cloth around your chest, which means you would need to remove your shift." Color darkened her green cheeks. "I can do it myself, if you have cloth." He fetched strips of clean linen he kept for such purposes, a habit from his military years. Then he turned his back, giving her privacy. He heard rustling, then a sharp intake of breath followed by several smaller pain sounds. Pride was making her suffer in silence rather than ask for help. "I am not looking," he said to the wall, "but I can help if you need it. I was a field medic for my unit. I have bound many ribs." A long pause. Then, very quietly, "I cannot reach behind myself." Yannick turned around slowly, keeping his gaze respectfully averted. Vara had managed to remove her tattered shift and held it bunched against her chest with one arm, the other wrapped protectively around her ribs. Her green skin showed darker bruises along her side and back, the shadow of brutal kicks or strikes. He took the linen strips and moved behind her, working quickly and professionally. His hands had done this task dozens of times for injured soldiers. He wound the cloth firmly but not too tight, providing support without restricting her breathing. Up close, he noticed details he had missed before. A scar across her left shoulder blade, the delicate point of her ears, the way her dark hair fell in waves down her back, matted now with ash but clearly well kept before tonight's ordeal. "Done," he said, stepping back. She quickly pulled her shift back on, though it was so damaged it barely served as clothing anymore. Yannick went to his trunk and pulled out one of his shirts, a simple homespun affair that would be far too large for her but at least intact. "Here, this will be more comfortable." She took it hesitantly, as though expecting it to be yanked away. When he simply waited, she ducked her head and quickly changed, turning away for modesty. The shirt hung on her like a dress, reaching to her knees. She looked very young suddenly and very lost. "You should sleep," Yannick said. "The bed is yours for the night. Where will you sleep? I have blankets. The floor is fine. I cannot take your bed." Her voice held genuine distress at the idea. "You saved my life. I should sleep on the floor. You have cracked ribs and can barely stand. You are taking the bed, and that is final." He softened his tone. "Please, it would ease my mind to know you are resting properly." Vara looked at him for a long moment, then slowly settled back onto the bed with a wince. Yannick pulled his blankets from the trunk and made a rough pallet on the floor near the hearth. He was exhausted suddenly, the events of the evening crashing down on him all at once. His hand still shook slightly from the adrenaline, and his lungs ached from the smoke. He was about to douse the lamp when Vara spoke again, her voice small in the darkness. "Thank you for saving me for this." A pause. "I do not understand why, but thank you." Yannick looked over at her, seeing her silhouette in the dim light. "Get some rest. We can talk more in the morning." He turned down the lamp and lay down on his pallet. Despite his exhaustion, sleep was slow to come. He kept seeing those chains, the terror in Vara's eyes as the flames closed in. Kept wondering who had beaten her and left her there to die. Kept questioning what he had gotten himself into by bringing her here. But beneath it all, he felt something he had not experienced in a long time. A sense that he had done something unquestionably right. Something good in a world that had shown him too much ugliness. When sleep finally claimed him, his dreams were, for once, not haunted by the faces of the dead. Morning came with golden light streaming through the cabin's single window. Yannick woke to the smell of smoke clinging to his clothes and hair, a reminder of the previous night. He sat up slowly, his body stiff and sore from sleeping on the hard floor. His throat still felt raw, and his hands bore fresh burns that stung when he flexed his fingers. He looked over at the bed and found Vara awake, watching him with that same wary intensity. Her swollen eye had improved slightly overnight, now open to a squint, though the bruising had darkened to a deep purple-black against her green skin. "How do you feel?" he asked, his voice rough. "Sore," she admitted, "but alive. That is more than I expected to be." Yannick got to his feet, suppressing a groan at his protesting muscles. "Are you hungry? I can make breakfast." She looked startled by the offer. "I can prepare food. It is the least I can do. You have broken ribs. I think cooking duties can be mine this morning." He moved to the hearth and began building up the fire from last night's embers. "How do you feel about porridge?" "I have never had porridge." He glanced over his shoulder at her, surprised. "Never," she shook her head. "Orcs do not eat the same foods as humans. Our digestion is different. Stronger. We can eat things you cannot, but some of your foods make us ill." "Oh." Yannick paused, uncertain. "What can you eat safely?" "Meat, mostly. Vegetables if they are cooked. Bread if it is not too refined." She hesitated. "But please do not go to trouble for me. I am used to going hungry." The casual way she said that last sentence made Yannick's jaw tighten. He turned back to the fire, his mind working through his limited supplies. He had dried venison from a deer he had hunted the previous week, some root vegetables in his small cellar. That would work. He set about preparing a meal, aware of Vara's eyes following his every movement. It was clear she expected him to suddenly turn on her, to reveal some cruel intention. Her whole body remained tense, ready to flee despite her injuries. "You asked last night who did this to you," Yannick said as he worked. "You do not have to tell me if you do not want to, but if someone is hunting you, I should know, for both our sakes." Vara was silent for so long he thought she would not answer. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she began to speak. "My clan lives in the mountains 3 days north of here. We keep to ourselves mostly, avoid humans when we can. But 2 weeks ago, a group of human trappers came into our territory. There was a confrontation. One of the trappers was killed." She paused, her hands gripping the edge of the blanket. "It was an accident. He startled one of our hunting parties and they reacted, but his companions did not see it that way. They wanted revenge," Yannick said quietly. "They wanted blood, orc blood. They raided our camp at night with torches and weapons. We fought back, but they had better arms, better strategy. We were scattered. I got separated from my clan and 3 of them caught me." Her voice went flat, emotionless. "They beat me, said I would pay for their friend's death. Then they chained me in that waystation and set it ablaze. I heard them laughing as they left. Rage, hot and fierce, flooded through Yannick's veins. He had to concentrate on breathing evenly to keep his hands from shaking. "Do you know their names? What does it matter? They are human. I am orc. No one will punish them. I would like their names anyway." She looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "Why? Because what they did was murder, attempted murder, and that is wrong regardless of who the victim is. You really believe that?" It was not a question but a statement of wonder. "I do." Vara studied him for a long moment. "I heard one called Dutch, another was called Pike. The third I did not hear a name for, but he had a brand on his hand. Here." She indicated the space between thumb and forefinger. Yannick nodded slowly, committing the information to memory. Dutch and Pike were not uncommon names on the frontier, but the brand was distinctive. He would remember. He finished preparing the meal and brought her a plate of venison and cooked turnips. She accepted it with a quiet word of thanks and ate slowly, as though her body had forgotten how to process food. Yannick settled at the table with his own plate, giving her space. "Your clan," he said after a while. "Will they be searching for you?" Pain crossed her face. "I do not know. Perhaps. But if they survived the raid, they will have moved on by now. It is our way. The injured who cannot keep up are left behind. That is harsh. It is survival. We live in a world that wants us dead. We cannot afford to be soft." She set down her plate, her appetite clearly small. "I should leave today. You have done more than enough, more than anyone has ever done for me, but I cannot stay. If I am found here, you will be named a traitor to your people. They will hang you. Let me worry about that. You do not understand. They will not just hang you. They will burn your home. They will make an example. Anyone who shelters an orc is considered an enemy." "I know the laws," Yannick said quietly. "I helped enforce them during the war. I know exactly what I am risking." "Then why?" That question again, desperate now. "Why risk everything for someone you do not know? For an orc?" Yannick set down his fork and met her gaze directly. "Because 6 years ago I was ordered to clear an orc settlement near the southern border. We were told it was a military target, a staging ground for raids. When we arrived, we found farmers, families, children." He paused, the memories sharp as broken glass. "I followed my orders anyway. I did what I was told, and those faces haunt me every single night." The cabin fell silent except for the crackle of the fire. "I cannot undo what I did," Yannick continued. I cannot bring those people back, but I can choose differently now. I can choose not to let another person die when I have the power to prevent it. He looked down at his hands, scarred and worn. Maybe that makes me a fool. But I would rather be a living fool than a man who let his conscience die. Vara's good eye had gone bright with moisture. She blinked rapidly, clearly fighting tears. "You are not a fool," she said roughly. "You are the first kind person I have ever met. The world has not been kind to you. The world is not kind to orcs." Yannick stood and began clearing the dishes. "Stay another day at least. Let your body start healing. I need to tend my traps and check the livestock anyway. You will be safe here. No one comes this far out." She looked like she wanted to argue, but the exhaustion in her face betrayed how much the simple act of sitting up had cost her. "One more day," she agreed finally. "But then I must go. I will not bring destruction to you. We will see." He spent the morning doing his usual chores, though he kept glancing back at the cabin to reassure himself that Vara was still there, still safe. His small farm consisted of the cabin, a modest barn housing 2 goats and some chickens, and a garden plot he had been coaxing into productivity. The work was hard but honest, and it had helped quiet the ghosts in his head over the past year. When he returned to the cabin at midday, he found Vara had managed to drag herself from the bed to the table. She sat there looking frustrated and in pain. "I tried to wash the dishes," she admitted. "But bending over made my ribs hurt too much. I told you to rest. I cannot just lie there and be useless. I need to do something." Yannick understood that feeling all too well. The need to be productive, to have purpose, especially when your body and mind were betraying you. "Can you mend clothes?" She blinked at the change of subject. "Yes, some. I have a pile of things that need repair. Shirts with tears, trousers with holes. Nothing urgent, but it would be helpful." He retrieved the pile from his trunk and set it beside her with a small sewing kit. "If your ribs allow it." Vara looked at the pile of clothing, then at him, then back at the clothes. "You are giving me work. Only if you feel up to it, no pressure." She reached for the first shirt, a simple gesture, but he saw what it meant to her: purpose, usefulness. A way to repay the debt she felt she owed. Her fingers, though bruised, moved with practiced ease as she threaded the needle. They fell into a comfortable rhythm over the following hours. Yannick worked on various tasks around the cabin, repairing a loose shutter, organizing his supplies. Vara sewed steadily, occasionally wincing when a movement pulled at her ribs but refusing to stop. They did not speak much, but the silence felt companionable rather than awkward. As evening approached, Yannick prepared another simple meal. This time Vara ate more, her appetite returning as her body began to recover from shock. He found himself watching her when she was not looking, noticing details. The way she held herself despite the pain, with a dignity that spoke of inner strength. The careful way she treated his belongings, as though each item was precious. The small smile that flickered across her face when she successfully repaired a particularly difficult tear. She was beautiful, he realized with some surprise. Not in the way human women were beautiful, but in her own way. Her features were strong and distinctive, her green skin catching the firelight in interesting patterns. Her tusks, which he had been taught to see as monstrous, were actually quite delicate, barely protruding past her lips. They gave her smile, rare as it was, an endearing quality. He looked away, troubled by the direction of his thoughts. She was under his protection. She was injured and vulnerable, and she was an orc, which made any such thoughts not just inappropriate but dangerous. "You are staring," Vara said quietly, and he realized she had caught him. "Sorry. I did not mean to make you uncomfortable." "I am not uncomfortable, just curious what you were thinking. You had a strange expression." "I was thinking that you are not what I expected." "What did you expect? A savage, a monster, Honestly, I do not know. The war taught me that orcs were the enemy, something less than human. But that was clearly a lie. You are just a person, someone who has been hurt and scared and is trying to survive. Vara set down her sewing and looked at him fully. Most humans do not see it that way. Most humans see orcs and see something that needs to be destroyed. I used to be one of those humans. I am trying to be better. You saved my life. I think you are already better. They held each other's gaze for a moment that stretched longer than it should have. Yannick felt something shift in the air between them, some connection forming that he did not quite understand. Then Vara looked away, color rising in her cheeks again, and the moment passed. That night, Yannick insisted she take the bed again despite her protests. He lay on his pallet by the fire and listened to her breathing slowly even out into sleep. His own rest was a long time coming. He kept thinking about what would happen when she left. The cabin would feel empty without her presence. He would go back to his solitary existence, alone with his thoughts and his ghosts. The realization that he would miss her troubled him more than he cared to admit. The next morning brought rain, a steady downpour that turned the world gray and made travel impossible. Vara looked at the weather with clear frustration. "Looks like you are stuck here another day," Yannick said, trying to sound sympathetic rather than pleased. "The weather conspires against me. Or for you. You could use another day of rest anyway." She sighed but did not argue. They passed the rainy day in the cabin, Vara continuing her sewing work while Yannick worked on carving new handles for his tools. The rain created an intimate cocoon around them, shutting out the rest of the world. "Tell me about your clan," Yannick said as he worked. "What was it like growing up there?" Vara's hands paused in their work. "Why do you want to know?" Curiosity. "I realized I know very little about orc culture beyond military intelligence, which was probably mostly propaganda anyway." She considered this, then slowly began to speak. "My clan is called the Stonefang. We are a small group, maybe 40 members total. We live by hunting and gathering, moving with the seasons. Life is hard, but we take care of each other." She paused. "Or we did. I do not know how many survived the raid." "Your family?" "I have no family. My mother died when I was young. My father died in a border skirmish 3 years ago. The clan raised me after that." "I am sorry." "Do not be. It is the way of things." But her voice carried grief nonetheless. "For what it is worth, my parents are both gone too. Sickness took them when I was 16. I joined the military shortly after because I had nowhere else to go." Vara looked at him with new understanding. "We are both orphans then." "I suppose we are." They talked for hours, swapping stories carefully at first, then with growing ease. Vara told him about orc traditions, their respect for strength, but also for wisdom, their complex relationship with the natural world. Yannick shared stories from his childhood in a small farming village, the simple life he had known before war changed everything. With each story shared, the distance between them diminished. Yannick found himself laughing at Vara's dry observations about orc politics. Vara's smile came more easily as she relaxed in his presence. By the time darkness fell, they had covered everything from favorite foods to embarrassing childhood moments. "I cannot remember the last time I talked this much," Vara admitted as they prepared for sleep. "It feels strange, but good." "I know what you mean. I have been alone out here for a year. Sometimes I go weeks without talking to another soul." "Why do you choose to be alone?" "Because being around people reminded me of things I wanted to forget. Out here there is just the work and the land. It is simple, clean, but lonely." "Yes," he admitted, "very lonely." Vara looked at him with something soft in her expression. "Thank you for sharing your solitude with me. I know it is a risk. You are worth the risk." The words came out before he could stop them, more honest than he intended. Vara's eyes widened slightly and color rose in her cheeks once more. The air between them felt charged suddenly, heavy with unspoken things. "I should sleep," she said quickly, breaking the moment. "Good night, Yannick. Good night, Vara." But as he lay on his pallet that night, Yannick knew that something had changed between them. What had started as simple rescue had become something more complex. He was beginning to care for her, to see her not as a responsibility, but as a person he genuinely enjoyed being around. And that was dangerous in ways the fire had never been. The rain continued through the next day and the one after that, keeping Vara trapped at the homestead. By the third day, she could move more easily, her ribs healing and the swelling in her face reduced. She insisted on helping with more tasks, and Yannick found himself teaching her to cook human-style dishes, laughing when she made faces at the strange textures and flavors. "How do you eat this?" she asked, poking suspiciously at a bowl of oatmeal, with a spoon generally. "It looks like something that has already been eaten once." Yannick choked on a laugh. "Just try it." She did, making an elaborate show of her reluctance that had him grinning. Her face went through several expressions before settling on surprised acceptance. "It is not terrible." High praise. "Do not let it go to your head, human." They were joking now, teasing each other like old friends. The transformation from wary strangers to this easy companionship had happened so naturally that Yannick barely noticed it occurring. But he noticed its effects. The cabin felt warmer with her in it. Meals were more pleasant shared. Even the simple chores became enjoyable when done together. On the fourth day, the rain finally stopped. Yannick woke to sunshine streaming through the window and felt his heart sink. The weather was clear. There was no reason for Vara to stay any longer. She was already awake, standing by the window and looking out at the blue sky with an unreadable expression. "Good traveling weather," Yannick said quietly. "Yes." She did not turn around. "I should gather my things. I have imposed on your hospitality long enough." "You have not imposed." "I need to find my clan, or at least discover if they survived. I need to know." "I understand." And he did, even as part of him wanted to ask her to stay. But what right did he have? She was not his to keep. She had her own life, her own people. She had already made it clear that staying here put them both in danger. Vara turned to face him finally, and he saw conflict in her eyes. "Yannick, I need you to understand. These past few days have been like a dream. A good dream. You have shown me kindness I did not know existed. But it cannot last. Our peoples are at war. There is no future in this." "In what? In this, us. Whatever this is becoming." She gestured between them helplessly. "I see how you look at me sometimes, and I know how I have come to look at you, but it is impossible." Yannick's chest tightened. "Is it? You know it is. Even if we could ignore everything else, I am orc and you are human. There is no place in this world where we could be together without bringing violence down on both our heads. What if we made our own place? Yannick, please. Do not make this harder than it already is." He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her that he did not care about the impossibility of it, that these past few days had been the first time in years he had felt truly alive. But the pain in her eyes stopped him. She was right. He knew she was right. That did not make it hurt any less. "At least let me pack you some supplies," he said finally. "Food for the journey, a better coat than that burned one." She nodded, blinking rapidly. "Thank you." Yannick gathered what he could spare, wrapping dried meat and bread in cloth, finding an old coat of his that would fit her better than her ruined cloak. Vara watched him silently, her expression carefully controlled. When he handed her the bundle, their fingers touched briefly and both of them froze. "I wish things were different," she said softly. "So do I." They stood there for a moment that felt suspended in time, neither wanting to be the one to break the connection. Finally, Vara pulled her hand back and shouldered the bundle. "I will never forget what you did for me," she said. "You gave me back my life. More than that, you gave me hope that perhaps the world is not as cruel as I believed. Thank you, Yannick Calloway. Be safe, Vara. Find your clan. Be happy." She turned toward the door, each step clearly costing her. Yannick watched her go, his throat tight with words he could not say. She reached the door, put her hand on the handle, then stopped. "If things were different," she said without turning around. "If the world was not what it is, I would want to stay." Before he could respond, she pulled open the door and stepped out into the sunshine. Yannick moved to the window and watched her walk away, her figure growing smaller as she headed toward the tree line. He watched until she disappeared entirely into the forest, and even then, he stood there staring at the place she had vanished. The cabin felt impossibly empty without her. Yannick tried to return to his normal routine, but everything felt hollow now. He tended his animals, checked his traps, worked in his garden. But his mind was always elsewhere, wondering where Vara was, if she was safe, if she had found her clan. At night, he lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling, missing the sound of her breathing from across the room. 5 days passed in this manner. On the 6th day, Yannick was splitting wood when he heard horses approaching. He set down his axe and wiped sweat from his brow, watching as 3 riders emerged from the forest trail. His stomach sank when he recognized the lead rider as Gregory Mason, a prominent rancher from Millbrook and a man known for his hatred of orcs. The men rode up to his cabin and dismounted without waiting for an invitation. Gregory was a large man running to fat, with a florid face and small, mean eyes. The 2 men with him were clearly hired muscle, the kind of rough characters who gravitated toward men like Gregory. "Calloway," Gregory said without preamble, "we need to talk." "About what?" "About why your property smells like orc." Yannick's blood turned to ice, but he kept his expression neutral. "I do not know what you are talking about. Do not play stupid with me, boy. My men tracked an orc girl to this area. Trail went cold near that burned waystation, but one of them swears he saw smoke from your chimney same day as the fire. Now I am standing in your yard and I can smell her. That stink does not wash out easy." Gregory stepped closer, his hand resting meaningfully on the pistol at his belt. "Where is she?" "There is no one here but me." "Then you will not mind if we search the place." "I mind very much. This is my land. You have no authority here." Gregory's smile turned ugly. "I have all the authority I need. There is a bounty on orc heads right now. 50 silver for everyone we bring in. That girl killed men, Calloway. She needs to answer for that." "She killed no one. She was the victim." The words were out before Yannick could stop them. Gregory's eyes lit up with triumph. "So you do know about her. Where is she?" Yannick cursed himself silently. "She was here. I found her injured and gave her shelter for a few days. She left 5 days ago. I do not know where she went." "You harbored an orc fugitive." Gregory shook his head in mock sadness. "That is a hanging offense, Calloway. You know that." "She was not a fugitive. She was a wounded girl who had been beaten and left to die. She was an orc. That is all that matters." Gregory gestured to his men. "Search the cabin and the barn. If you find anything that proves she was here, bring it out. You have no right. I have every right." Martial law still applies on the frontier when it comes to orc threats. Gregory pulled his pistol and pointed it casually at Yannick. "Now step aside, or I will add resisting lawful authority to your crimes." Yannick had no choice but to watch as the 2 thugs ransacked his home. They emerged minutes later with one of the bandages he had used on Vara's wrists, stained with her green-tinged blood. "Well now," Gregory said, examining it, "that is all the proof we need. You sheltered an orc knowing she was wanted for murder. That makes you a traitor and an accessory. This is madness. She committed no crime. She is an orc. Her existence is a crime. Gregory nodded to his men. Tie him up. We are taking him back to Millbrook for trial. Trial? You mean a lynching. Call it what you want. Justice will be served. The two men grabbed Yannick roughly. He considered fighting, but the pistol in Gregory's hand made it suicide. They bound his wrists with rough rope and threw him onto one of the horses. As they rode away from his homestead, Yannick looked back at the small cabin he had built with his own hands, wondering if he would ever see it again. The ride to Millbrook took several hours. By the time they arrived, word had spread of his capture. A crowd gathered as they dragged him to the small jail, people shouting accusations and curses. Yannick recognized some faces in the crowd, people he had traded with, people he had thought were decent. But hatred had transformed them into a mob hungry for blood. They threw him into a cell that smelled of mold and despair. Gregory leaned against the bars with a satisfied smile. You should have known better, Calloway. You served in the war. You know what orcs are, but you let one of them corrupt you, turn you traitor. Tomorrow the town council will decide your fate, but we both know how that will end. He leaned closer, his breath reeking of whiskey. Any last words? I regret nothing. If saving a life makes me a traitor, then I am proud to be one. Gregory's smile faded into a scowl. You will not be so proud when the rope is around your neck. He left, his footsteps echoing away down the corridor. Yannick sank onto the cell's single cot and dropped his head into his hands. He had known this was a possibility from the moment he pulled Vara from those flames. He had made his choice with open eyes. But knowing it intellectually and facing the reality were very different things. Night fell. Yannick dozed fitfully on the cot, his dreams troubled by images of fire and chains and Vara's face as she walked away. He woke to the sound of shouting outside and sat up, confused. It sounded like the whole town was in an uproar. Footsteps pounded down the corridor and the deputy, a young man named Willem, appeared at his cell looking terrified. Get up, Willem said, fumbling with his keys. Get up right now. What is happening? Orcs. A whole war party of them. They are at the edge of town demanding we release you. Willem got the cell open. Gregory wants to hang you right now before they can attack, but Mayor Hughes is trying to negotiate. It is chaos out there. Yannick's mind raced as Willem led him out of the cell and toward the front of the building. Through the windows, he could see torches and movement in the darkness beyond the town's edge. Orc warriors, at least 20 of them, standing in a loose formation that managed to look both organized and threatening. And at the front of that formation, unmistakable even at this distance, stood Vara. His heart leaped into his throat. She had come back. But why? And how had she convinced an orc war party to help her? Mayor Hughes, a gray-haired man who had always struck Yannick as reasonable, was speaking urgently with Gregory near the town hall. Other armed men stood nearby, their rifles pointed toward the orcs but their hands shaking. Everyone knew that if fighting broke out, the town would suffer terrible losses even if they won. Vara stepped forward, and her voice carried clearly in the tense silence. We want the human called Yannick Calloway, she called out. Release him unharmed and we will leave peacefully. Refuse and we will take him by force. That man is a criminal, Gregory shouted back. He gave aid to an orc fugitive. He will face justice. He saved my life when humans tried to murder me. He showed me kindness when I expected only cruelty. If you harm him, you will answer to the Stonefang clan. Mayor Hughes stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Please, let us discuss this calmly. Perhaps we can reach an understanding. There is nothing to discuss. Release him now. Gregory turned to the mayor, his face purple with rage. You cannot seriously be considering giving in to orc demands. If we show weakness now, they will see us as easy prey. If we start a battle here, people will die, our people. The mayor's voice was firm. I am willing to hear them out. They are orcs. They understand nothing but strength. Vara's voice cut through the argument. Yannick Calloway. If you can hear me, know that my clan is willing to go to war for you, because you went into fire for me, because you taught me that there is kindness in this world. We do not leave our own behind. The simple declaration hit Yannick like a physical blow. She had called him one of her own. She had brought her entire clan to rescue him. He stepped forward before anyone could stop him, moving into the torchlight where she could see him. I am here, he called out. I am unharmed. Vara's whole body seemed to sag with relief. Good. Then we can all walk away from this peacefully. The hell we can. Gregory pulled his pistol and aimed it at Yannick. That traitor hangs tonight, or I will shoot him where he stands. Everything happened at once. Vara screamed a warning. The orc warriors surged forward. Gregory's finger tightened on the trigger. And Yannick, acting on pure instinct from his military training, dove to the side as the pistol fired. The bullet missed him by inches, slamming into the wall of the building behind him. Then the orcs were among them, and chaos erupted. But these were not mindless savages attacking. They moved with precision, disarming the townspeople without killing, creating a corridor straight to Yannick. Vara ran through that corridor, two large warriors flanking her for protection. She reached Yannick and grabbed his bound hands, producing a knife to cut his bonds. Can you run? She asked urgently. Yes, but Vara, you did not have to do this. Yes, I did. Now come on. They ran together back toward the orc lines. Gregory screamed orders, but his men were too busy being disarmed to pursue. The mayor shouted for everyone to stand down, his voice barely audible over the confusion. Yannick and Vara reached the safety of the orc formation, and the warriors immediately began to retreat in good order, backing away from the town while maintaining defensive positions. Hold your fire. Mayor Hughes ordered. Let them go. Gregory started to protest, but the mayor rounded on him with unexpected fury. This is your fault, Mason. Your vendetta started this mess and nearly got people killed. Stand down or I will have you arrested. The orcs melted back into the forest, taking Yannick with them. They moved swiftly and silently through the darkness, covering ground with practiced ease. Yannick struggled to keep up, his body exhausted and his mind reeling from everything that had happened. After perhaps an hour of hard travel, they finally stopped in a small clearing where more orcs waited with supplies and weapons. Vara immediately turned to Yannick, her hands running over him as if checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Did they torture you? I am fine. Bruised but fine. He caught her hands, stilling their frantic movement. Vara, what did you do? I saved you, like you saved me. You brought your whole clan into danger for me, not just for you. She glanced back at the warriors who were setting up a defensive perimeter. Come, I need to explain. She led him to where a large, scarred orc warrior stood directing the others. He had to be close to 7 feet tall, with muscles like corded iron and a face that had seen many battles. His tusks were longer than Vara's, filed to sharp points, and his eyes were hard as flint. Yannick Calloway, Vara said formally. This is Kragoth, war chief of the Stonefang clan. Kragoth, this is the human who saved my life. Kragoth studied Yannick with an intensity that made him want to squirm. Then, slowly, the war chief nodded. Vara told us what you did, Kragoth said, his voice like grinding stone. How you ran into fire to free her. How you tended her wounds and asked nothing in return. How you treated her as a person deserving of respect. He paused. Such actions deserve to be repaid. You are under the protection of the Stonefang now. I do not understand. I thought orc clans did not interfere with human affairs. Normally, we do not. But you interfered with ours when you saved one of our people. That creates obligation. More than that, it creates opportunity. Vara spoke up. When I found my clan, they had survived the raid but lost much. Homes burned, supplies destroyed, 3 dead. They were planning revenge against Millbrook, believing the whole town was responsible. She met Yannick's eyes. I told them what really happened. That it was 3 men, not the whole settlement. That at least one human had shown honor and mercy. It changed things, Kragoth continued, made us think differently about humans, not all at once, not completely, but enough to question old hatreds, enough to consider new paths. Yannick felt like the ground was shifting beneath his feet. What are you saying? I am saying that when Vara heard you had been arrested, she asked us to help rescue you, and I agreed, because I am tired of war, tired of watching my people die over ancient grudges. If one human can show mercy, perhaps others can too. Perhaps there is a way forward that does not end in blood. You want peace. I want survival, for my clan and my people. War with the humans is a slow death. You outnumber us, outgun us. Every generation we grow weaker while you grow stronger. If we continue on this path, the orcs will be wiped out within 100 years. Kragoth's expression softened slightly. But if we can find common ground, find a way to coexist, then perhaps my children's children will have a future. Yannick looked at Vara, seeing new understanding in her eyes. This is what you were thinking about when you left. I needed to find my clan, but I also needed to tell them about you, about what you represented, a chance for something different. She stepped closer to him. I told you there was no place in this world where we could be together. But what if we made that place? What if we showed both our peoples that cooperation is possible? That is a beautiful dream. But how? Kragoth answered. We start small. Trade between my clan and human settlements willing to work with us. Mutual defense pacts against common threats like bandits. Slowly build trust. He gestured around the clearing. But we need a bridge between our peoples. Someone who understands both sides. Someone both sides might trust in time. The implications settled over Yannick like a mantle. You want me to be that bridge. You and Vara together, Kragoth confirmed. A human and an orc, working side by side. Proof that our peoples can do more than just kill each other. That will make me an exile from my people. I can never return to human settlements. You would be welcome among the Stonefang, Kragoth said. We would be honored to have you. Yannick looked at Vara, seeing hope and fear warring in her expression. She was offering him everything and asking for everything in return. A life among orcs, forever cut off from his own kind. But also a life with her, a chance to build something meaningful, a purpose beyond mere survival. What do you say? Vara asked softly. Will you take this leap with me? Yannick thought about his empty cabin, his solitary existence, thought about the war he had fought and the lives it had cost. Thought about those 4 days with Vara in his home and how alive he had felt. The choice was terrifying. The choice was also obvious. Yes, he said. I will. Vara's face broke into a radiant smile and she threw her arms around him, ignoring the interested looks from the other orcs. Yannick held her tightly, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the solid warmth of her body against his. This was real. This was happening. When they finally pulled apart, Kragoth was watching them with something that might have been approval. Good. We move camp tomorrow to a new location, deeper in the mountains. You will come with us, learn our ways. In time, when trust is built, we will approach human settlements with offers of trade. But for now, we disappear. Let the humans wonder what happened to their prisoner. The war chief's expression turned serious. This will not be easy, Yannick Calloway. My people will test you. Some will resent your presence. You will have to prove yourself worthy of the trust we are placing in you. I understand. Do you? You are giving up everything familiar. Your people, your culture, your way of life. For what? For an orc girl and a dream of peace. Yannick looked at Vara, seeing his future reflected in her eyes. Not just for that, for a chance to be part of something that matters, to help build something better than what came before. And yes, for her, because these past few days have been the happiest of my life and I do not want them to end. Vara's hand found his and squeezed tight. Kragoth nodded slowly. Then welcome to the Stonefang, Yannick Calloway. May you find what you seek among us. The next weeks were among the hardest of Yannick's life. The Stonefang clan moved deeper into the mountains, to hidden valleys and caves that humans did not know existed. Yannick learned quickly that orc life was nothing like what he had imagined. They were not savages, but a people with complex traditions, honor codes, and a deep connection to the land. They were also deeply suspicious of him. Many clan members made their hostility clear through cold stares and deliberate exclusion. He was the enemy sleeping in their midst, the human who had killed orcs in the war. That Vara and Kragoth vouched for him meant he was tolerated, but trust had to be earned. Vara stayed close to him during those early days, helping him navigate the complex social dynamics of the clan. She taught him the orc language, their customs, how to show respect and avoid giving offense. They worked together daily, and slowly, carefully, their relationship deepened beyond gratitude and attraction into something genuine and profound. "Tell me about your parents," Yannick asked one evening as they sat together overlooking the valley where the clan had made temporary camp. Vara was quiet for a moment, her expression distant. "My mother was a healer. She knew every plant in these mountains could cure almost any ailment. She died trying to save a child during a fever outbreak when I was 7. The sickness took her too." She paused. "My father was a warrior. He taught me to fight to survive. He fell defending our old territory from human soldiers. I never learned which unit killed him. I am sorry for your loss and for my part in this war. You did not kill him. You were just a soldier following orders, same as he was defending his home." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I have stopped blaming all humans for the actions of some. That would make me no better than those who hate all orcs." Yannick wrapped his arm around her, marveling at how natural it felt. "Do you think your parents would approve of this, of us? My mother would have loved you. She always believed in healing, in finding cures rather than cutting away diseased parts. She would have seen you as proof that reconciliation is possible." Vara smiled slightly. "My father would have tested you, challenged you to prove your worth, but I think, eventually, he would have accepted you. He valued courage above all else, and you have shown great courage. I do not feel courageous. Most of the time I feel terrified that I have made a terrible mistake. That is what makes it courage, doing the thing that terrifies you because you believe it is right." They sat together as darkness fell over the mountains, wrapped in each other's warmth against the chill. Below them, cook fires bloomed throughout the camp like stars. The sounds of orc voices raised in song drifted up to them, a haunting melody in a language Yannick was slowly learning to understand. "I love you," Vara said suddenly, the words quiet but clear. "I know it is too soon, too fast. We have known each other less than a month, but I need you to know. In case things go wrong, in case we do not get more time, I love you, Yannick Calloway." Yannick's heart felt too large for his chest. He turned to face her fully, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you too. From the moment you looked at me in that burning building with hope instead of hate. You changed everything for me, Vara, gave me a reason to be better than I was." She kissed him then, gentle at first but deepening with all the passion and longing they had both been holding back. When they finally broke apart, Both were breathing hard, and Vara's eyes gleamed with moisture. "I want a future with you," she whispered. "I want to build this dream together, make it real. A place where our children, if we are blessed with them, can grow up without learning to hate based on the color of someone's skin. Then we will build it, together, whatever it takes." They sealed the promise with another kiss, and Yannick felt pieces of himself that had been broken since the war began to heal. He had found his purpose. He had found his home, not in a place but in a person. Over the following months, Yannick slowly won over members of the clan through hard work and persistence. He hunted with the warriors, learning orc fighting techniques and sharing human military tactics. He helped the gatherers identify edible plants, combining their knowledge with things he had learned from his mother's garden. He sat with the elders and listened to their stories, showing respect for their wisdom. It was Kragoth who gave him his first real test. The war chief called him aside one morning with a grave expression. "3 human trappers have been caught on our territory," Kragoth said without preamble. "They were setting snares near our hunting grounds, deliberately trespassing. My warriors want to execute them as a warning to others." Yannick's stomach clenched. "What do you want me to do?" "I want your counsel. You understand humans better than we do. If we kill them, what happens? Their deaths will be discovered. People will assume orcs murdered them without cause. It will undo all the goodwill we hope to build. And if we release them, they will tell everyone they encountered orcs and lived. That might plant seeds of doubt about whether we are the monsters they have been taught to fear." Yannick paused, thinking hard. "But there is a third option. We could send a message through them." "What kind of message?" "That the Stonefang clan claims these mountains as sovereign territory. That trespassers will be escorted out but not harmed, provided they leave peacefully and spread the word that these lands are under orc protection. That we seek peace, but will defend what is ours." Kragoth considered this, his scarred face thoughtful. "It is a risk. It reveals our position. Everything we are attempting is a risk, but calculated risks are how we move forward." The war chief studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "We will do as you suggest. Come with me. You will speak to these trappers on our behalf." The 3 trappers were being held in a guarded cave, tied but otherwise unharmed. They looked terrified when Yannick entered with Kragoth and several warriors. Their terror increased when they recognized him. "Calloway," one of them gasped. "They said you were taken by orcs. We thought you were dead." "I am very much alive and acting as translator for the Stonefang clan." Yannick kept his voice formal, authoritative. "You have been caught trespassing on sovereign orc territory. By rights, you should be executed. But the war chief has decided to show mercy and release you with a message." He outlined Kragoth's terms while the trappers listened in stunned silence. When he finished, the oldest of them, a grizzled man named Marcus, found his voice. "You are working with them, helping orcs." "I am working toward peace, something we desperately need if both our peoples are to survive. People will call you a traitor. Let them. I would rather be a living traitor working for peace than a dead patriot who accomplished nothing but more bloodshed." Yannick met Marcus's eyes steadily. "Take the message back. Spread the word. The Stonefang clan is willing to negotiate for peaceful coexistence. Any settlement that wants to discuss terms can send representatives to the neutral ground at Copper Creek. We will meet them there under flag of truce." Marcus and his companions were released that afternoon, sent back toward human lands with their message. Yannick watched them go with mixed feelings. He had just committed to Kragoth's plan fully, become the bridge whether he was ready or not. Vara found him later that evening, standing alone and staring out at the sunset. "Second thoughts?" she asked gently. "Third and fourth thoughts. But I am committed now, for better or worse. It will be better, I have faith." I wish I had your certainty. She took his hand, lacing their fingers together. You do not need certainty, you just need me. We will face whatever comes together. Yannick pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. Together. I like the sound of that. Good. Because I have something to ask you. She pulled back slightly to look up at him, and he saw nervousness in her expression. In orc culture, when two people wish to commit their lives to each other, they exchange tokens and make vows before the clan. It is our form of marriage. His heart began to race. Vara, I know it is soon. I know we are in the middle of chaos and nothing is certain. But that is exactly why I want to do this. I want you to be mine and me to be yours officially before the whole clan. I want everyone to know that we stand together. She swallowed hard. Yannick Calloway, will you bond with me? Will you be my mate? Yannick felt tears prick his eyes. This fierce, beautiful woman was offering him everything. A future, a family, a place where he truly belonged. Yes, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, Vara, I will bond with you. I will be yours for as long as we both live. Her smile could have lit the night. She kissed him hard, joyful, then pulled back with a laugh. I need to tell Kragoth. He will want to arrange the ceremony, and I need to make you a bonding token. Traditionally, it is something precious to you that you give to your mate. What will you give me? She touched a necklace he had noticed before, a simple leather cord with a small carved stone pendant. This was my mother's, the only thing I have of hers. I want you to have it to know that you are family now. Yannick's throat tightened. I cannot take something so precious. You can and you will. That is what bonding means. What is mine becomes yours, and what is yours becomes mine. She paused. What will you give me? He thought for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn object. A compass his father had given him on his 16th birthday, the last gift before his parents died. He had carried it through the entire war, a reminder of home and simpler times. This, he said, placing it in her hand. So you will always be able to find your way. And so you will know that you are my home now. Vara cradled the compass like it was made of gold and diamonds. It is perfect. You are perfect. They made their plans that night, sitting together and imagining their future. The bonding ceremony would happen in 2 weeks, giving the clan time to prepare. After that, they would make the journey to Copper Creek to see if any human settlements responded to their message. It was ambitious and terrifying and exactly what needed to happen. The 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Yannick threw himself into learning everything he could about orc bonding traditions, wanting to honor Vara and her culture properly. The ceremony itself would be simple, but meaningful. They would exchange tokens, speak their vows, and share blood to symbolize the joining of their lives. The blood-sharing part made Yannick nervous, but Vara assured him it was purely symbolic, a small cut on each palm pressed together. It represents that we will bleed for each other, fight for each other, protect each other above all else, she explained. That our lives are now intertwined. I can do that. The day of the ceremony arrived with perfect weather, clear skies, and warm sun. The entire clan gathered in a sacred grove deep in the mountains, a place used for important rituals. Kragoth officiated, his deep voice carrying through the assembled orcs as he explained the significance of what they were witnessing. Today we see something new, the war chief said. A human and an orc choosing to bind their lives together. This is unprecedented in our history. Some among you doubt this is wise. Some question whether it can work. But I say this is exactly what we need. A symbol of hope, of possibility. A bridge between our peoples built on love rather than hate. Yannick and Vara stood facing each other in the center of the grove. She wore a simple dress of green cloth that matched her skin beautifully, her hair adorned with flowers. He wore his best shirt and trousers, scrubbed clean and mended. They looked into each other's eyes, and Yannick saw his entire future there. Kragoth prompted them to exchange tokens first. Yannick placed his compass in Vara's hands while she gave him her mother's necklace. He immediately put it on, feeling the weight of it settle against his chest like a blessing. Then came the vows. Vara spoke first, her voice clear and strong. I, Vara of the Stonefang, take you, Yannick Calloway, as my mate. I vow to stand beside you in all things, to protect you with my strength, to honor you with my truth, to love you with my whole heart. Where you go, I go. What you face, I face, until death parts us. Yannick's voice shook slightly as he repeated similar words adapted for him. I, Yannick Calloway, take you, Vara of the Stonefang, as my mate. I vow to stand beside you in all things, to protect you with my strength, to honor you with my truth, to love you with my whole heart. Where you go, I go. What you face, I face, until death parts us. Kragoth produced a ceremonial knife, beautifully made with an ornate handle. He made a small cut on Yannick's palm first, then Vara's. They pressed their hands together, their blood mingling as they stared into each other's eyes. By blood and vow, you are now bound, Kragoth declared. May you find joy in each other's company, strength in each other's support, and peace in each other's arms. The Stonefang clan recognizes this bonding. You are family now and always. The assembled orcs erupted in cheers and howls, a cacophony of approval. Vara threw her arms around Yannick and kissed him deeply while the clan celebrated around them. When they finally broke apart, both were laughing through tears. We did it, Vara said. We are really bonded. We really are. Yannick kissed her again, softer this time. My wife, my mate, my heart. My husband, my partner, my future. The celebration that followed lasted late into the night. There was food and drink, music and dancing. Orcs who had been suspicious of Yannick approached to offer congratulations, their acceptance grudging but real. He was no longer just the human Kragoth had allowed into the clan. He was Vara's mate, which made him family. Late in the evening, Kragoth pulled Yannick aside with a serious expression. Tomorrow we travel to Copper Creek, the war chief said. 3 settlements have sent word they want to talk. It is a start. Will they accept Vara and me negotiating on behalf of the clan? That is exactly why I am sending you both. You are living proof that orcs and humans can work together. If they see you two bonded and happy, it will be harder for them to maintain their hatred. Kragoth paused. This will be dangerous. There will be those who see you as traitors and targets. You must be careful. We will. But we cannot hide forever. If we want peace, we have to take risks. Spoken like a true Stonefang. Kragoth clasped his shoulder briefly. You have become a credit to our clan, Yannick Calloway. I am glad you chose to stay. I am glad too. Yannick returned to Vara's side and they slipped away from the celebration as it wound down, finding privacy in the small dwelling they now shared. It was simple. Just a tent with furs for bedding, but it was theirs. They made love for the first time that night, gentle and exploratory, learning each other's bodies with reverence and wonder. Afterward they lay tangled together, skin against skin, hearts beating in rhythm. I never thought I could be this happy, Vara whispered against his chest. I spent so long believing the world was nothing but pain and survival. Then you ran into fire for me and everything changed. You changed me too, gave me a reason to hope again, a purpose beyond just existing. What do you think tomorrow will bring? I do not know. But whatever it is, we will face it together. Together, she agreed and kissed him once more before sleep claimed them both. The journey to Copper Creek took 2 days of hard travel. Yannick and Vara went with an escort of 6 warriors, enough to provide protection, but not so many as to seem threatening. Kragoth stayed behind with the main clan, trusting them to represent the Stonefang interests. Copper Creek was neutral ground, a place where trappers and traders from various settlements met to exchange goods. It sat in a valley between orc and human territories, accessible to both but controlled by neither. When they arrived, Yannick's heart sank. Only one small group waited for them, maybe a dozen humans with wary expressions. 3 settlements agreed to come, Vara said quietly, noting his disappointment. Where are the others? One of the waiting humans, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, stepped forward. The Millbrook delegation turned back, said they would not negotiate with traitors and monsters. Greenhallow sent me alone to observe. I am Giselle Murray, their representative. I am Yannick Calloway. This is my mate, Vara of the Stonefang. He kept his voice level, refusing to show disappointment. Thank you for coming. Giselle's eyes widened at the word mate, but she recovered quickly. You really bonded with an orc. I did. Because I love her and because I believe our peoples can find a better way forward than endless war. Brave words. Let us see if you can back them up with action. She gestured to the rough benches someone had set up in the clearing. Shall we begin? The negotiations lasted all afternoon. Giselle was sharp and practical, focused on concrete benefits rather than idealistic dreams. What could trade with the Stonefang clan offer Greenhallow? What guarantees could be made against raids or violence? How would disputes be handled? Yannick and Vara answered each question carefully, offering reasonable terms. Limited trade in furs and herbs, the orcs gathered in exchange for tools and grains the humans produced. A mutual defense pact against bandits. A neutral arbitrator system for resolving conflicts. Nothing too ambitious, just small steps toward coexistence. By the time the sun set, they had the framework of an agreement. Giselle would take it back to Greenhallow for approval, but she seemed cautiously optimistic. This could work, she admitted as they prepared to part ways. If both sides hold to the terms. If hotheads on both sides can be controlled. She looked at Yannick directly. You gave up a lot for this dream of yours. I hope it proves worth the cost. It already has, Yannick said, taking Vara's hand. But I appreciate your willingness to try. Giselle nodded and rode off with her escort. The orc warriors began making camp for the night, their mood lighter than it had been. They had accomplished something real today, small as it was. Vara pulled Yannick aside as darkness fell. One settlement is willing to negotiate. That is a start. It is more than a start. It is proof that this can work. Greenhallow is small, though, maybe 300 people. We need bigger settlements to commit if this peace is going to last. Then we convince them. One at a time if necessary. We have time. She looked up at him with such love in her eyes that it took his breath away. How did I get so lucky to find you? I was just thinking the same thing about you. They held each other as stars emerged overhead, 2 souls from different worlds who had found unity in each other. The road ahead would be long and difficult, Yannick knew. There would be setbacks and opposition from both sides, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The following months proved both their hopes and fears correct. Greenhallow approved the trade agreement, and it began to show benefits for both sides. Orc hunters brought in quality furs and rare mountain herbs. Human farmers provided grains and vegetables that supplemented the orc diet. Small exchanges grew into regular contact, and with contact came familiarity. But there was opposition, too. Gregory Mason from Millbrook began organizing what he called a committee for human safety, dedicated to opposing any cooperation with orcs. There were incidents, skirmishes between hot-headed humans and suspicious orcs. Each one threatened to unravel the fragile peace. Yannick and Vara became troubleshooters, racing from crisis to calm tensions and find solutions. It was exhausting work, but slowly they began to see results. More settlements sent representatives to talk. The Stonefang clan's example encouraged other orc clans to consider similar arrangements. 6 months after their bonding, Vara made an announcement that changed everything. "I am pregnant," she told Yannick one evening, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Our child will be born before winter." Yannick felt the world tilt on its axis. A baby. Their baby. The first child born of human and orc parentage, a living symbol of what they were trying to build. "Are you scared?" he asked, touching her face gently. Terrified, but also hopeful. This child will never know a world where humans and orcs cannot love each other. That is a gift we can give them. Then we will make sure the world is ready for them, no matter what it takes. News of Vara's pregnancy spread quickly through both communities. Reactions were mixed. Some saw it as beautiful proof that peace was possible. Others called it an abomination that proved how far Yannick had fallen. But as Vara's belly grew and her pregnancy became visible, something shifted. Human women began asking her questions about orc childbirth practices. Orc elders discussed what this half-blood child would mean for the clan. The baby became real to people, not an abstract concept, but an actual life that would soon exist. That made it harder to maintain hatred. Kragoth approached Yannick when Vara was 7 months along. "I have been thinking," the war chief said, "about what comes after me. I am not young anymore. Someday, possibly soon, the clan will need new leadership. You have many good warriors who could take that role." "Warriors, yes. But we need more than warriors now. We need someone who can bridge both worlds, someone both orcs and humans will trust." He paused meaningfully. "I want you and Vara to consider becoming the next clan leaders, together." Yannick stared at him in shock. "Me? But I am human." The clan would never accept a human war chief. Not alone, no, but bonded to Vara. With a child that is half orc, you are more than human now, you are family. And your abilities have proven themselves. You have secured peace where I could only maintain war. You have opened doors I did not know existed. Kragoth's scarred face softened slightly. "Think about it. You do not need to decide now, but know that I believe you are ready." The conversation stayed with Yannick for days. The idea of leading the Stonefang clan alongside Vara was overwhelming. But it also felt right in a way he could not quite explain. He had found his purpose here, his home. Why not commit to it fully? When he broached the subject with Vara, she was quiet for a long time. "I never wanted to be a leader," she said finally. "I always thought I would just be another hunter, another member of the clan doing my part. But you make me want to be more. Make me believe I can be more. We can do it together. We have proven we work well as a team." A human and an orc, leading an orc clan and negotiating with human settlements. Our child growing up watching us build a better world. She smiled, resting her hand on her swollen belly. "When you say it like that, how can I refuse? Is that a yes?" "That is a yes. We will tell Kragoth together." Their daughter was born on a crisp autumn morning as leaves turned gold and red across the mountains. The labor was long and difficult, but Vara proved as strong in childbirth as she was in everything else. When the midwife finally placed the tiny, squalling infant in Yannick's arms, he fell instantly and completely in love. She had her mother's green skin, though a lighter shade than Vara's. Delicate pointed ears and the smallest buds of tusks. But her eyes, when they opened, were distinctly human in shape and color, a warm brown inherited from Yannick. She was perfect. She was impossible. She was theirs. "What should we name her?" Vara asked weakly from the bed, exhausted but glowing with joy. "I was thinking Hope," Yannick said softly, unable to take his eyes off his daughter. "Because that is what she represents. Hope Calloway. I love it. Word of the birth spread rapidly through both communities. Many came to see the baby, driven by curiosity if nothing else. What they found was a healthy, beautiful infant who gurgled and cooed like any other newborn. The sight of Yannick cradling his half-orc daughter with such obvious tenderness moved many who had opposed the bonding. Giselle Murray from Greenhollow made the journey to offer congratulations. "She is beautiful," the human woman said, peering at Hope with genuine warmth. "And she is going to change everything, is she not?" "We hope so," Vara said from where she rested. "If nothing else, she proves that our peoples can create life together, not just death." "More settlements want to talk," Giselle said. "The birth has gotten people thinking differently. Even Millbrook is reconsidering their stance, though Gregory Mason still fights it tooth and nail." "Let him fight," Yannick said firmly. "We will keep building peace anyway." "For her sake, if nothing else." Giselle smiled. "You have become quite the diplomat, Calloway. Who would have thought?" Over the next year, the peace they had worked so hard for began to solidify into something real and lasting. More settlements signed trade agreements with the Stonefang and neighboring orc clans. Disputes still arose but were settled through negotiation, rather than violence. Slowly, the frontier was transforming from a place of constant conflict into something more complicated, but also more hopeful. Kragoth officially named Yannick and Vara as his successors when Hope turned 1 year old. The ceremony was witnessed by both orc clan members and human representatives, a symbolic passing of responsibility to a new generation of leaders. "I am getting old," Kragoth announced to the assembled crowd. "My bones ache and my fighting days are behind me. It is time for new blood to guide the Stonefang. Yannick and Vara have proven themselves wise, strong, and dedicated to building a better future. I can think of no one better to lead us into it." There was some grumbling from traditionalist orcs who still did not fully trust having a human in leadership. But it was muted. Yannick had spent 2 years earning their respect through hard work and consistent action. Most of the clan had come to see him as one of their own. The human representatives had mixed reactions too. Some praised the unusual arrangement as innovative. Others remained suspicious. But none could deny that the Stonefang under Yannick and Vara's joint leadership had been consistently peaceful and open to cooperation. That evening, after the ceremony and celebrations, Yannick and Vara sat together outside their dwelling watching Hope toddle unsteadily around the camp. She had started walking recently and was impossibly proud of herself, shrieking with delight each time she managed 3 steps without falling. "We did it," Vara said softly. "Built exactly what we dreamed of, a place where she can grow up free. We are not done yet. This is just the beginning." "I know, but sometimes it is good to stop and appreciate how far we have come." She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "From chains in a burning building to this. How did we get so lucky? Not luck. Choice. We chose each other. We chose to believe in something better. And we fought for it every single day." Hope stumbled over to them and climbed into Yannick's lap with determination, her small face scrunched in concentration. He held her close, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair, feeling Vara's warmth against his side. This moment right here was everything he had ever fought for without knowing it. "I love you," he told Vara, not for the first time and certainly not for the last. "I love you too. Always." Hope babbled something incomprehensible and patted both their faces with her small hands, as if blessing them. They laughed together and held their daughter close, 3 lives intertwined and made whole. The sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold and red. Somewhere in the distance, a human settlement was preparing for evening. An orc hunting party was returning home with their catch, and in between these worlds that had been enemies for so long, A small family sat together and dreamed of the future. It was not a perfect peace. Challenges remained and always would, but it was real and growing stronger every day, built on love instead of hate, on hope instead of fear, on the willingness of two people from different worlds to look past what they had been taught and see the truth of each other's hearts. Yannick Calloway had run into flames to save an orc girl named Vara. In return, she had saved him from a life of loneliness and guilt. Together they had saved each other over and over, in ways both large and small. And now they would spend the rest of their lives saving their world, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of love and courage at a time. As darkness fell and stars emerged overhead, Yannick carried his daughter to bed while Vara walked beside him. They tucked Hope in and stood together watching her sleep, marveling as parents do at the miracle of this small life they had created. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be settlements to negotiate with, clan members to counsel, opponents to convince. But tonight, there was only this. His family, his home, his heart made whole at last, and that was enough. That was everything.